When I was 9 months into my first year of college, I had a mental breakdown and I had to drop out of college. Now, if you know anything about the UK benefit system, basically my mom was a single parent and was being paid benefits for me being in education. And now that I was out of education due to my mental break, she was no longer entitled to this benefit. And we were a very poor family and we were relying on this benefit. So we had to apply for a new benefit, which was designed to help families like us who were struggling with mental health. But this also meant that I had to prove arbitrarily that I was suffering with mental health and I wasn't just trying to game the system, which happens a lot in the UK, which meant I had to jump through a bunch of hoops to try and gain access to this new benefit. And I suppose they make people do this to try and deter people away from actually getting access to the benefit. With that said, we had no choice. We really needed this money, so I began jumping through those hoops. And one of those hoops was I had to go and see numerous healthcare professionals to have a bunch of, once again, arbitrary tests to prove that I am mentally unwell. Is he really clinically depressed and anxious, or is he just trying to game the system? I remember being sat in this one doctor's office specifically and feeling so unbelievably uncomfortable, because at this point I was completely and utterly unable to make any sort of eye contact with anyone that I was talking to. The second my eyes connected with someone else's, they would immediately dart away, or I would just find myself staring at the ground while someone was speaking to me, which, if you don't know, is a very prevalent symptom of having autism. But I remember just being sat in this doctor's office and this lady doctor was speaking sort of over me straight to my mom, as if I wasn't even really in the room. There I was staring at the ground while this doctor was asking my mom if I've ever been tested for autism. And it felt really depressing for me because I was sat right there. And the fact was, I was so incapable of socializing at this point that I wasn't even worth this doctor addressing. So she just went straight past me to my mom. I suppose it's very hard to connect with another person when they're not even able to make a split second of eye contact with you. So even though I'm sat right in front of her, I was this low. I had to rely on my mom to answer very basic questions for me. And I'll never forget the energy that this lady doctor had. She took one look at me and then she looked over to my mom. Have you ever had him tested for autism? And my mom said, no, I haven't. Get him tested for autism. As if it was so obvious to her that I was autistic. And it was like a shock that I've never been tested. And from that point on, every healthcare professional which I spoke to a lot, would also make the same comments. Has he ever been tested for autism? Maybe you should get him tested. Get tested, Sam. We need a diagnosis. We need to know what's going on here. We need to know if you're autistic or not. And at this point, I was so unbelievably mired by anxiety and dark thoughts that I'm really surprised that I was clear-minded enough to make the following observation. Why? Why get tested for autism? Why do I need a diagnosis? What does that change exactly? What does that offer to me? What does it offer outside of the excuse that I can fall back on whenever my behavior is lacking? You have a messy room? Oh, it's because you're autistic. You can't make any friends? Oh, well, it's because you're autistic. Can't make eye contact? Because you're autistic. I'm so grateful that I was able to have the foresight to see that coming, because having that as an excuse is actually very, legitimate. And it would make a pretty solid case as to why I shouldn't make tangible progress moving forward in my life, especially with my social skills. Why even bother trying to level up my social skills when I have this inflictment upon me where it's really difficult and I might not ever get better at eye contact? I had an autism test sat on my desk where I would sit and play video games for 12 hours a day for over 6 months. And every week or so, my mom would come in and ask me if I've done the test yet. And I would say, no, I haven't. I'll get round to it, mom. And that continued on for 6 months until one day my mom had enough. She saw that I still hadn't done the autism test and that I probably wasn't going to do it. And so she just took it away, and I assume she put it in the bin. Because for those 6 months, I knew if I did that test, it would give me a fantastic excuse to not try and move forward in my life. It would give me a great excuse as to why I feel so horribly inadequate. But let me paint an alternate reality for you all now. Let's imagine that I did that test and I got diagnosed with autism, right? Would I have made the massive conscious effort that I did end up making to try and improve my social skills and to improve my eye contact? Or would I be more likely to just accept the fact that I'll never be slick socially, I'll always struggle with eye contact because I have autism. Because it was a very conscious effort that I had to make to try and improve these aspects of my life. And I feel like if I had any sort of extra resistance, such as a good excuse to not try and level up, like having autism, I probably wouldn't have gone through all of the pain that I did go through trying to improve my social skills. And I would have never got to the point where I'm at now with my social skills, where I have a fantastic network of friends, I have zero issues with eye contact, and I speak to new people on a day-to-day basis, no problem. I feel like I am above average in terms of my social skills. I'm quite sharp, I can be funny, I can be witty, I can read social cues. I have no problems with my social skills now. But if I had got that autism diagnosis, would I have gone through that 9-month to 1.5 year period of time where I went to the gym every single day with not only the intention to train my body physically, but also to train my social skills? Would I have continued to push through the 3-month period of time where I was consciously making the effort every single day to try and improve my eye contact and continually failed? Or would I have been more likely to give up after a few weeks because I have autism and I'm just not cut out to be able to make eye contact with other people? I fully believe that if I had the excuse of being autistic to fall back on, there's a 0% chance that I would be in the position that I'm in now. I would have most likely stopped in my pursuit of excellence and accepted the fact that God had afflicted me with the inability to make eye contact and to make friends and to socialize with people. And that would have made me a significantly worse and more miserable person. Because let's be honest, I already had enough reasons to stop trying. Going into the gym every day and failing to connect with people and constantly failing to make eye contact and beating myself up about it mentally was enough resistance for me to power through already, let alone having extra resistance added, knowing that I was fighting an uphill battle against an illness or an affliction, which is making this near enough impossible for me to achieve. This is going to sound abrasive now, and I'm sorry if I offend some people, but I'm going to share with you the mindset which pushed me through this period of my life. Whether or not I had autism, I was still required to perform. I wanted to be able to socialize. I wanted to be able to connect with people. I wanted to be able to look at people in their eyes. Having autism or not having autism didn't change that fact. So not being diagnosed didn't matter to me. Either way, I wanted to be able to achieve these things. And that's how I realized that getting this diagnosis wasn't going to serve me at all. It was going to make my life harder. And I had seen this with the diagnosis of my clinical depression. I feel like that diagnosis actually shackled me mentally for many years. I was told by nearly every healthcare professional that I spoke to that I had clinical depression and I was gonna have to learn to live with it for the rest of my life, that I had a chemical imbalance in my brain. But the reality was, the reason I was clinically depressed is because of learned behaviors and learned thought patterns, which I had to mentally undo. And I had to brute force my way out of that mental stage by taking action. And the problem with my clinical depression diagnosis is that it took all of the reward away from taking action. What's the point in going to the gym if I'm just going to be clinically depressed anyway? What's the point in talking to new people and trying to make friends when I'm always going to be clinically depressed anyway? There was no reason for me to try and level up because I was told that I was going to spend the rest of my life clinically depressed. This mentally shackled me and it stopped me from pursuing any sort of growth, and I saw the same potential happening with my autism diagnosis. I'm so grateful that I had the foresight to be able to see that despite how much I was struggling mentally at that point. My social skills and my ability to connect with other people has been insanely important to me on my journey to the position that I'm in now. And you know what? Maybe I do have autism. Maybe I just have a few autistic quirks. I'm sure I probably do. I'm sure that the assumption of all of those healthcare professionals weren't founded out of nowhere. There's probably some legitimacy to them. But my decision to power through and ignore that anyway, and to not allow this label to weigh me down and shackle me down, and to disrupt my pursuit of excellence was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I made it in a period of my life where I was so lost and misguided. That diagnosis would have done nothing but disempower me. I hope this video is helpful. If you want to learn how to make money online from the comfort of your bedroom or traveling the world with your laptop, I teach over 500 of my students how to do exactly that. And as you can see, we're getting excellent results inside of my Academy of Excellence. You could be next. Take care, boys.